Hello everyone, I welcome you to another video by Legacy IAS where we're going to talk about not a very pleasant issue because there is an economic crisis which is there in UK. As we speak, the people are really troubled with the way in which inflation has bombarded, and it is very difficult to manage the situation and things are really getting worse. Let us look at what exactly happened. So, UK introduced a mini budget with the biggest tax cuts in the last 50 years, amounting to 45 billion pounds. They also rolled back corporate tax hikes. All right, there was a cost increase as far as national insurance was concerned. The stamp tax has basically been slashed. This is essentially nothing but a duty which is being imposed on the land sales which take place in both England as well as in Northern Ireland. This has been done in order to increase the home purchases. There has also been These events have also taken place in the backdrop of all the economic damage which has happened, especially because of the shutdown of the Russian gas which is flowing and moving into Europe. Now, if we look at the situation and if we look at the budget, you see that there has been a great amount of tax which has been reduced. A lot of steps have been taken, expecting or with the expectation that it is going to spur growth. However, we also need to look at the background in which these events have taken place, or rather, these decisions have been made. We are looking at the time when Brexit is still, or rather, UK is still suffering from the economic fallout of Brexit. We've not had too much of growth, especially after Brexit, and UK is still struggling with that transition. There is a high debt already in Britain, which is due to the energy cost which have taken place, and this is almost amounted to 150 billion pounds. All right, which is used to be used for the household as well as businesses. Now, in order to free themselves of it, Britain is having to borrow from the foreigners. All right, and this borrowing would obviously enhance or increase their current account deficit. We are parallelly looking at very high energy costs, like I just told you, especially because of how you have disassociated getting oil and energy requirements from Russia. The Bank of England, on the meantime, is actually trying to manage inflation, trying to reduce this particular rate by increasing the interest rate. So, Bank of England, the monetary policy is having a completely different term, whereas the government, through its mini budget, it's taking a completely different direction. And what has happened as a result of this, that pound sterling has basically been devalued. There has been a major currency crisis in the nation. It has further increased instead of reducing inflation. The cost of living has spurred up exponentially. This is all in the backdrop of already suffering economy from the COVID-19 pandemic. So it has definitely not gone well, and there are a lot of repercussions that UK and in a way the entire world is having to deal with. Investors have basically rejected this particular plan, saying that this trussonomics, focusing on the supply side economics, is almost like the Reaganomics. All right. The global markets have actually responded by selling off all these assets which were UK based. This is indicating of a lack of trust, all right, a lack of faith, which is further devaluing the currency. This has pushed the currency to a valuation of $1.03. It's actually the lowest ever. All right. In fact, this tax cuts have now created a bigger deficit, which will now have to be financed through a lot of borrowing. UK is already suffering from a lot of debt. In fact, according to UK's Office for Budget Responsibility, the public debt is expected to now balloon up to 320%. This is a huge amount and a huge number that we're looking at. The figures are absolutely astonishing. Let's take a moment to look at why this was done in the first place. Now, it was expected that if we cut down the tax, there is a section of the wealthy people of Britain who are going to benefit out of it. Special incentives have been provided, especially for the corporations, including the tax cuts which we are looking at and the rollbacks in regulation. According to the government, it is to further increase investment in the economy. So, whether the Bank of England was not consulted on it, but it's definitely following a completely different direction. Either priorities are different or the methodology is different. Either way, it is the public who's basically suffering. In fact, the International Monetary Fund goes off to say that the nature of UK measures will likely increase inequality instead of reducing them in any way. In fact, IMF have insisted that the government should consider ways to provide that they are more targeted and they reevaluate these tax measures. All right, so it's calling for re-looking into the decisions which have already been taken. In fact, we are looking at an opposite of basic economic principles. These principles are actually getting flouted because when you're injecting more money into an economy already suffering from inflation, it's the most illogical thing as an economist that you can suggest, do, or as a country you can take. So now if we look at the future, we are essentially looking at the government actually taxing income in order to manage their problem of inflation. All right, this can actually help them to fund their programs instead of borrowing and also increasing their deficit. So it can fund a lot of programs like pension and the National Health Service, on which a large section of the population is dependent upon. So this is where the crisis, or this is where the budget has led Britain to a further crisis, to deepening the crisis. Sometimes it's said when you're already in crisis, your mind doesn't work right. Probably this could be one of the things that happen with Britain, but we'll have to wait and watch as to what the future unfolds for the country. So if you've liked the video, let us know by liking and putting a thumbs up. Also share it with those who are still not aware as to how this crisis can be managed, and subscribe it for many such videos. Thank you so much.